Our next speaker is Jan-Erik Nordtvedt. He's going to talk about, I think, building on some of the discussion we've just had, about experiences from implementing collaborative workflows across organisational boundaries. Jan-Erik has more than 20 years' experience in the industry, starting up with Statoil, and then moving on to R&D and working with the University of Bergen, Texas A&M, and finishing up as research advisor to the Christian Michelsen Research and research director for the Rogaland Research Institute. And then time with Roxar. Since 2000, Jan-Erik's been working quite a lot with operations, currently assisting companies and service providers implement collaborative workflows, which I'm sure we're going to hear about. Jan-Erik.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, everybody. I've been working in this little background before I start. I've been working with integrated operation for the last 10 years, and as you can see, kind of took on more challenges as we go on, because this is certainly not a easy problem. It's kind of hard enough to do it within a company if you're not going to try to do it across companies too, but certainly that's the way our industry is going. Initially, when we started out in Epsis and with this, we were focusing on the implementation of workflows in the oil and gas companies, and lately then moving into the suppliers as well. Today I will share some thoughts with you on this subject, and I think my objective really is to make you reflect a little bit on the balance between what we're working on in the industry when it comes to data integration and the collaborative workflows, because there is a tendency, in my mind anyway, that we might overemphasize the data management piece just a little bit. So to that, I might be alone for lunch, but I take that chance. So remote. So just going to give you a few little short introduction to Epsis, just a few slides, and then some thoughts on these on collaboration across boundaries. So I'll be working a data integration problem, or I'll be working a workflow problem. And then I'll go and talk a little bit on the challenges within collaboration. We've been going around to, I think it's between 50 and 60 assets, and looked at some of these challenges and how that transpires into challenges when it comes to collaboration. I'm going to share a few of those with you as well. I'll give you an example and a summary in the end. So Epsis, I don't have to define integrated operation for you. It's what we call digital oilfield or digital energy here. But collaboration do play a very important role in the implementation of this. And what we're doing in Epsis, we're delivering products and solution and competency for implementation of that with a focus on the E&P industry. And we are a small company. We are 30 people located in Bergen and Houston mostly. So this is what we do. We have a software product for implementation of workflows, and we are kind of enthusiastic about the thing to the left-hand side, which is what we call the Epsis Teambox, which is really a way of implementing collaborative environments on a purely IT-based manner. Okay, this is kind of going into collaboration across companies. This is a slide from the Oil Industry Association of Norway, and we talk about the second generation integrated operation. So we had let's see if this works. Well, so we have a limited integration in the traditional processes. We have integration between onshore and offshore, and then as we move into the second generation, we have more focus on the integration between the companies. And we have integrated operation centers that contains both vendors and operators, more automated processes, and 24/7 operations. So there are some operation models to this, and large initiative in Norway, integrated operation in the high north. I'll come back to that in one more slide. Talk about how we can have lean organization towards the end, towards the asset, and then have work with multi-asset support center, and then finally have external expert centers that contains people from other organizations as well. I think many respects, down to the red line, a lot of companies are doing fairly well, and quite a few good examples of that as well. But when it comes below the red line, when we are including external experts and realizing that there is a need to have that extended collaborative network with real-time data, we tend to have some issues. And one way of avoiding and kind of implementing this is really to have a co-location of people. Co-location of the vendor and the operator, so they actually are in the same room. Alternatively, to have networks that actually sits within the vendor organization, but still are a network from the oil company or from the oil and gas operators. Now that is really not going to do the trick, because the cost of that operation is not going to be coming down, and the value of having the vendors close to it is not going to be realized now. So we kind of faced with an IT challenge, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that later on today too. The data integration piece. There are different data historians. There are different tag structures. There are different formats, and the standard formats are not 100% standardized, and you have firewalls and so on and so forth. So one solution to that is to have a centralized integration platform where you can solve all the problems when it comes to standardization of data. You can solve the problem when it comes to the security and the IT infrastructure. You can pull out the data that you need and make sure that you can utilize them into the different application that you need, like you talked about this morning. That will be fixed with something like this. You are able to get your data into any software application. So if you can do that, that's going to be the best. And surely, again, in integrated operation in the High North, this joint industry initiative in Norway, that is being worked, and I'm sure many other people are working the same problem. Very important. The potential is there. So this is interoperability, the collaboration across the data, the boundaries. But there are some problems too. It's quite an endeavor, and it requires ample time and resources to make it happen. And you need to know how far it is to the other end, so that you're sure you're kind of taking the right medicine. The alternative medicine to this is to have larger ferries that go more frequently, but the bridge, of course, will take you there better if the needs dictate that. And you might lose some flexibility once it's built. And certainly what we experience anyway, there are some legal and cultural issues. So do you really want to share the data with the expert community in a way that's really necessary, and in an openness that's necessary to make this happen in a good way? So I think a lot of time collaboration across organizational boundaries are said to be equal with the data integration. So we can actually see the data in all different places in the best possible way. And what I think we should think more on is if collaboration across organization boundaries really has to do with work process integration mostly, and then data integration as a mean to achieve that. And that certainly you need to have both going on at the same time. I think we all can agree on the data integration piece need to be there, but you need to focus on the work process integration as well. And that might be a faster route if you're able to work on the data integration that you need, but take the business value, as Julian talked about, take the business value as the way to dictate which data to integrate and which processes to work on. I'm going to talk a little bit about some challenges on collaboration as well. We've been, as I mentioned initially, we've been looking at more than 60 assets around the world, both onshore-based as well as offshore-based. And I just want to go over three challenges that we've been seeing almost in every location. First of all, I think when you are, and many are building these operation centers, as we know, and you put people in there, and you're supposed to make decision based on bringing the best of their capabilities to the table, and then making a better decision in a faster way. That's the idea of integrated operation of digital oilfield. And when you look at the number of applications that people are using when it comes to making those decisions, it's huge. There might be 20 to 40 different applications within each different engineering discipline. And there's a lot of data integration initiatives in a way to aggregate that information, to make sure that they can all see that within a portal or within some sort of aggregated manner, so you can manage by exception. The problem is that when you're really talking about the solution to the problem in the subsurface and the process, the devil is in the details, and you need to have that specialist application there in order to make that best decision. And then the portals that you might make, they are okay once deployed, but whenever there is a change, and unfortunately the subsurface and the way that it kind of reflects itself on the production rate and pressures, it's changing all the time. So whenever there's a change, there needs to be a change in the portal too. So it's an ongoing problem that's going to continue. So many applications just deal with it. That is something that you will not get away from regardless. The second thing is really the search party for information. It's really difficult to find the information that you need when you need it. And another thing is that very often what you'll find and what's going to be presented into the decision-making process might depend on who's on duty. And that means it's really hard to ensure consistency for decision-making when that's the case. And there are many cases where really the data that they are using and the decision-making basis is in some sort of Excel spreadsheet that is really very private to that specific individual. And then finally, the technology they're utilizing for collaborative environments is really quite cumbersome frequently. It's hard to use. There are quite a few proprietary systems that are being used. It's really hard to deploy and maintain. And even though they might be okay when they are deployed, it's kind of hard if you want to do a change. If you want to do changing out the screens or having a different setup altogether, it requires experts that comes in and help with that. So I'm going to offer an overview on some of that and how we have been implementing this for our clients. First of all, a lot of the collaborative environment have large screen real estates, and that can be utilized in order for you to do visual integration of the application. When people are coming into an operation room or a collaborative environment, they can utilize a screen real estate in a way that actually allows them to do the integration where it's most important, namely in the head. They need to make sure they can see information that is reasonable in context to what they're dealing with. They don't necessarily have to do that into the data stream in order for that to be useful for them in the decision making. And the second piece to this is really predefined workflows. A lot of operation meetings and a lot of the meetings we do when we are collaborating are repetitive and contain information that you can find over and over again, regardless who is actually working there at a given time. If you take the time to set up a series of workflows that allows you to dial in which application to use when. And finally, then what we're doing on the collaborative environment is to simplify the setup of these by the solution here. Okay, let me run off with an example, and this is from MI Svako. It's a remote real-time support of North Sea drilling operations. So what MI is doing, they are providing drilling fluids and related services to operators worldwide, and they use a specific system to do so, and they're working out. This is for an example in the North Sea. They are doing 24/7 services in what they call the cover room, critical operation visualization room, in the Bergen offices by trained engineers. And on the right-hand side here, you see the setup. This is operators sitting in that, or well, they have the two on duty sitting in that around the clock. So they are implementing workflows, and they can share the data with participants and subject matter experts, regardless of where they're sitting, including back into the operator community. So if you look at the setup for this, the only piece of data that's flowing is between the operator and the provider is down here in the middle, when the drilling data is going to the ME stock offices in Bergen. All the rest is really shared, and all the application that they're using are shared back to the operators and to the office in Houston and to the drilling center in Stavanger, as is the case here, by means of collaboration tools. So they're not doing a massive data integration work. They're just utilizing the collaboration solution in order to achieve the same thing, focusing on the work process. So when they earlier took screenshots and sent pictures over the email, they're now collaborating real time between all the three different locations. All the 4 different locations. With offshore Norway, in Bergen, in Houston, and in Stavanger. So this is an example, and there might be, and it's not necessarily unique to the way that we've done it, but the way that we have been thinking about it is I think, interesting, because it has been the work process and what they wanted to achieve that has been central for the solution they selected, not the need for integrating all the data back and forth, just to make sure that they could see the data that they needed when they needed it in all those 4 locations. And not only that, but also being able to, from Houston, whenever the guy in Norway needed support, they could actually operate on the specific software they were using to solve the problem for the client there and then have a 4-way collaboration session going on more or less simultaneously and more or less around the clock if needs be. So, just a summary. Implementation of collaborative workflows across the company board has some challenges, obviously, and as far as we can see, data integration is often complicated and reduces the opportunity for the end users to be involved, as it often is IT driven. And it's also frequently seen as an absolute necessity to achieve cross-company collaboration, and we don't think that necessarily needs to be the case. So we point to an alternative approach when you can start realizing business value immediately using existing technology and focusing on enabling work processes as opposed to integration technology. And we just showed that with one example from Inmarsat, and there are several more on its way and coming. Thank you for your attention.
Any comments or questions at all? Just over here. Could you introduce yourself? Specifically, but when you ask the question, yeah.
Good morning, Jan-Erik. So Tom Nick from Kongsberg Oil and Gas. With what you just said and what Julian just said before, I see already a tendency, that is that mindset. who do you speak to, and all those boundaries or fences that we have to hop over in trying to, shall we say, collaborate, build a collaboration room or speak with those. Because you just don't build a collaboration room. It's a personality for each company. What do they want to use it for, et cetera. So I see this tendency already starting here, that we're fighting to find who do we speak to. But you did say something about the cumbersome technology, which I think is quite interesting, that also. As soon as you buy something, behind projector screen or whatever, then the technology changes to a flat screen or LCD, which was much better and less service. So these are the things we always have to look forward to also, and that's what we have to speak to our customers about also. So I really do see a point there. And fill in that usage of pattern, so how to update each year. That's the trouble, is that people usually use a collaboration. Those who have one today, they have a collaboration room, and they use it, and it's a repeated usage. But there are other things you could do with a collaboration than just what we're using them for today. And people get into a, what do you call, a rut, if you will. And if we can break that rut also, they begin to see larger usages for that. So I found that both of these presentations were very interesting, but I saw that there was also a theme, I think. That is, who do we speak to, and how do we jump over those fences? That's what I'm hoping to find out today.
Who's our client?
Thanks.
Any comments to that at all?
Well, first of all, thanks. I think you're spot on some of these usages. What we've been finding when we talk to clients is that, and I think Julian, you mentioned it too, these glorified meeting rooms, because when they built it, they were okay. But then they evolved over time, and it's kind of hard to let the rooms keep up at that pace. And that's why we've been really working on getting it away from being kind of on the AV side into the IT side, by allowing for the clients to do what they want with it without having to do other things than software configuration. And personally, I think that's the way to go, because the AV, really the collaboration room and maintenance of that takes too much time and also too much cost. And by doing it on IT, you can take down the cost dramatically of implementation, but also on the operations of them. So I think that's the way to find that balance. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Jan-Erik, can I pick you up on this issue of data and process integration? When we do a process, essentially we're moving a thing through a process, and the thing is described by data. And you showed an example of integration using images, and those images are indeed data, and we're relating to, when we're collecting people together, we're collecting people to look at images. Those are data as well, those images. So is that a semantic point about, so what exactly are you moving through the process, and what is data in this?
That's a good point. What I was, of course, when we are putting the application up on the screen, we are doing, in a way, we are moving data, obviously, because we're moving pixels, and we also are doing data integration in a way that we are showing them on the screen in a very specific way. The point of that is that it's the real integration I think you need to have is the integration happening in people's head, if you will, when they actually are looking at that from different angles, because the strength of a collaborative environment is that you can bring things to the table that is best of breed, and which is really, really up to date.
So it's a collaborative visualization environment.
It is more like a visualization of it, if you will. But I do think because of, you can do that so much quicker, and it can adapt to the process because it changes on you all the time. So you don't have to kind of carve it in stone, if you will, but you can nest it together in a nice way and let it evolve with how the process is going. Okay. Because it is not, many of the processes we are involved in, they are evolving over time, not because the process is different, because the content of the decision making is different. Yeah. And it's not be static. There's no chance at all for that.
Okay. Any comments at the back there?
Jocelyn Loma from Serena, and I'm a communications engineer by background. I'm wondering to what extent is operational safety a business driver for improved collaboration?
No, I think it is, but it's kind of a hard thing to answer or give my reflections on in a few minutes, and I'm sure everybody here has their own reflection on that as well. But at least operational awareness and making sure that everybody sees the same thing is certainly a driver in the industry today, and has been for quite some time. I think also on the drilling side, we are involved now with monitoring / surveillance projects where people like to see the operational data from a drilling operation quite high up in the organization, all the way to the board, if you will. And there are, of course, good reasons for that to be quite actual these days. But I think certainly that is a good point, and is certainly a driver.
Because building on that point some more, one of the issues in drilling is the integration between service company and operator. And if you can't visualize across firewalls, like you mentioned there, then there's a problem. So is it mainly the firewall problem that prevents integration of service companies with
No, I don't think so. But I think this example that I showed, the firewall issue was there. But I think the real problem is how much do we really want to share?
Yeah.
And I think it's much more. I mean, the technology for that sharing is there. I think it could have been done quite a bit easier if we all kind of solved the problem of the legal issues. But I think what we're doing here, we're not transmitting anything but screens and screenshots, but you still can have the same operational flexibility as if you sent the data. And that is a whole different ballpark when it comes to sharing, because no data is physically moved when it comes to the real data point. So it's make it easier from that perspective, I think.
Great. One last question, I think.
Yeah, Abdul Sattar from Hampton Data. When you're talking about an equation of extended collaboration is equal to the data integration and processes integration, from the data integration point of view, I think another key factor is implementing and publishing the common data standards. So how much importance you are giving to that?
No, I think the common data standard has proved itself extremely important. I think if it hadn't been for that, the example we just showed couldn't have been possible, because the data are being transmitted to MSWACO from the operator. So I'm certainly not making a case for not doing that at all. I'm saying that you might look upon this starting with the process that you actually want to do something about, and then take as much data integration as you need for making that process work, while we work in the bigger problem of getting this big unified way of looking at the data and transmitting the data. So I think it's not a matter of doing one or the other. I think what I'm seeing is that some of the work process side is lagging a little behind because we're so occupied with the data integration piece. And I think there's no reason to do so. I think we have quite a sufficient portion or sufficient standardization going on to be quite effective on the work process already now, and realize value.
Thank you.
That's it, Jan-Erik. So
I hope you have a good day.
And can we reconvene at just after 2:45, between 2:45 and 10:02? I'd like to start at 10:02.